them not just to, access the curriculum, but to thrive in school with appropriate intervention, supports, and accommodations. I'm thrilled to have my wonderful advocacy specialist with me tonight, Melissa Minnick, and we're both delighted to have Corinne Coppola, who is our expert this evening and is going to talk to us and take us from chaos to calm. We were talking as people were coming into the room, and welcome everybody. Oh, someone's here from Malaysia. That's awesome. Thank you for joining us. Can't imagine what time it is. Go ahead and type in the chat. What time is it in Malaysia? I'm so curious. So
8
thank you for joining us.
On 11/20.
Excellent.
8 a.m. on November 20th. Wow.
Wow. Well, welcome. We're so glad you're here. And as I was saying, I spend my days in school meetings with parents of students who do have disabilities. And even in the best of times, these parents are having to be resilient, manage their stress, manage their emotions. A lot of our kids who learn differently experience great levels of anxiety. And as we watch our kids suffer, as parents, we experience anxiety. And as I said, pre-COVID, when there wasn't a pandemic, I think a lot of us were doing fairly well. But I am continuing to hear from my clients who are parents of kids with disabilities all across the state of Virginia that not only are their kids struggling, but they are struggling. And we're seeing more and more kids who are being diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorders. We have kids turning to drugs and alcohol, becoming more and more depressed. I mean, mental health is a huge concern, even in the best of times. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Corinne, and we're just so delighted to have you here, and I can't wait to learn from you. So a little bit about Corinne. While I get the chance to connect with her on a regular basis, I want to let you know that she does transform women, families, and children from feelings of depletion and loneliness and anxiety to hopeful, energized, and connected. She specializes in working with women who have navigated a transition and have a family history of addiction, or trauma. She helps families slow down and learn new ways of relating to themselves and each other. Corinne helps her clients build greater resilience and wholeness so that they can live their best life. Corinne is an adjunct professor at George Washington University, the Milken School of Public Health. She has a master's in organizational development, and she has 25 years of extensive experience in business, including nonprofits and substance abuse recovery. Corinne regularly designs and delivers trainings and presentations on resilience and well-being to national and regional audiences. And as I said, we're just delighted to have you here. So Corinne, welcome, and the floor is yours. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lorraine, for the kind introduction. I'm really excited to be here, and wanted to make sure that you all can see my screen. Okay. So strategies for calm and to move to calm from chaos. Let's see how we can go. Okay. So, we all know, as Lorraine said, like record levels of mental health issues right now. And, we sometimes think that mental health is separate from our physical health. And actually, the statistics show that those who are diagnosed with anxiety and depression that don't treat or work with their anxiety or depression are 3 to 5 times more likely to have physical ailments and visit the doctor, and 6 times more likely to have to have psychological hospitalization. So it's really important that we take care and pay attention to our mental health so that it doesn't blossom into bigger issues. And, I don't know if anyone has heard, if you don't deal with it, it'll come back to bite you. Well, that might be sort of nebulous, but it's the truth. Like, what we don't deal with will come back to us in other forms. So I'm hoping tonight that we can teach you some ways to navigate anxiety and depression, just these feelings of depletion and overwhelm. Let's see, there we go. So here we're talking about, the parent. It's really important that as parents, we keep ourselves in a solid, grounded place. Because you can think of yourself as the sun, and then you have all these planets around you, whether they be your family relationships, your work relationships, your friend relationships. If we're all off balance as the sun, then all these planets around us are going to be off balance, right? So we have to find ways to bring ourselves back to balance. And one of the things that we tend to do as a society, let me just kindly, I have to let people in, sorry. One of the things that we do as a society is we tend to shy away from difficult emotions, right? We actually have this frame of reference where we think that we are rational beings, rational cognitive thinking beings that occasionally have an emotion, when actually we are emotional beings that occasionally think. So we all are acting from this emotional place, this reactive place. And it's really important that we learn how to ground ourselves so that we can recognize the emotion, we don't bury it, and we can navigate it a little bit better. Okay. So one of the things that we tend to do, right, is that we tend to overeat. We might turn to alcohol, we turn to screens, we might binge watch, we might binge shop, whatever we do to distract ourselves from feeling those difficult emotions, which is completely natural. Like nobody wants to deal with it. But if we don't navigate it, if we don't feel it, you can't heal it. It's sort of like you got to feel it to heal it. I really love that acronym, right? But it can be so scary and overwhelming. Like, again, no one wants to feel the difficult stuff. However, if we don't, it's sort of like, if you can think of it as this tunnel, like there's no way around the emotions. And it actually only takes 90 seconds to process an emotion. So if it only takes 90 seconds to process an emotion, what happens is that we often keep on telling ourselves the story to, the story is what keeps on going, and it keeps the system going in this anxious depression, sort of way. Hold on one second, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get someone else in, okay. Thank you for your patience. So again, it's our natural proclivity to go to get something sweet or salty to eat. That's, I tend to do, or go for an extra glass of wine, or go for, I'm just going to tune out and just binge watch some TV or binge watch some movies. And what happens is that we do get that quick fix. We get that serotonin, endorphin quick fix. So we feel better in the moment. However, what happens is, like, when that goes away, we go down deeper into the negative feelings. So, like I said, if you can think of it as a tunnel, we sometimes get stuck in that tunnel. And so there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we need people around us to help guide us through the tunnel.
And Corinne, I was just going to say, while you were talking, can't help but realize that, in this time of extreme social distancing, it's even more challenging because there's not a lot of people around, and I think of our teens who are kind of isolated from all of their friends. And I know you're going to give us some coping strategies eventually, but it's really true. Everyone's world has become very isolated. So yeah, it's great that we have you here tonight.
So Lorraine, no, I appreciate you saying that. And there are special challenges, especially if you want to speak to that, around the dyslexia population and those who have learning challenges, if you would like to speak.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I don't know how many folks are here tonight. I know one parent said, my child with dyslexia says hello. So please tell your child with dyslexia. It's awesome that they're here. We're glad to have you. But yes, as you said, Corinne, for kids who have learning differences, they already feel a bit isolated until they kind of grow into those differences and become comfortable self-advocates. And I think with virtual learning right now, and everyone already feeling so far removed, students who have disabilities or any type of a difference, they're at greater risk for any type of a mental health episode. And I don't know that as parents, we're fully aware of that. So I think this is such a timely presentation, and I look forward to, some of the questions, hopefully from our audience members, about what they're seeing with their kids, because I talk to parents every single day, and some kids aren't even engaging in the virtual education. They're not even putting their camera on. They're not even in front of the computer, if you will, and teachers aren't even aware. So it's a concerning time. So anyway, thanks,
Yeah.
Corinne.
Well, you know what, Lorraine, let's do a practice right now. I'll hop in and let's do a practice right now so that we can gather ourselves too in this moment. I call this finger tracing. So it's really simple, and the challenging part of it, the not easy part of it, is remembering to do it. So it's simple. I say these practices are simple but not easy, so you've got to remember to do them. So what you'll do is we're going to move the finger around our hand with our breath. So as you breathe in, you'll draw the finger up the thumb. As you breathe out, it'll be down. And you can close your eyes. You're just following the trace of the hand with the finger with the breath. So as you breathe in, you go up the finger. As you breathe out, you'll go down. And you'll do that for 2 rounds. Just bringing your attention fully to your hand and your breath. And there's no way to do this wrong. Your breath and the rhythm of your breath is directing the movement. Again, you're just focusing on the touch of the finger on the hand. You can make the breath as deep.
National identified Virginia as a high priority state,
And then release. And then open your eyes. So you can put in the chat how that felt, how that was.
Very relaxing for me, Corinne. Yeah, I already feel a little more centered.
Good.
Right. If anybody else feels more centered, type a 1 in the chat. We were moving from 5, a feeling of high stress, to a feeling of 1. So I enjoyed that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just so you know, I got a little message since I'm the host about 10 free minutes left in the call. So if people get kicked out, we'll just come back on. I just want to say that. Okay. I don't know if we'll get kicked out, but I just wanted to let you know that I got that little message. Okay. So anybody else want to say anything in the chat about how that was, if you think that will be helpful to you or to your family? And really any age can do that.
I was just going to say, Corinne, I think that's an excellent, I would never have thought of this, but that's a really easy, literally a hands-on activity that you could teach a child of a really young age, that they would have a way to calm themselves down and focus on their breath. And they don't have to have a special tool or a fidget or anything else in their pocket. It's just right there on them, literally.
It's right there, and nobody has to see it. So if they're on their computer, nobody, when I used to teach this in schools, I would have them sort of hide their hand under the desk, so nobody has to see it. So at the dinner table, if somebody's doing a little, it's a little challenging to you, you can just put your hands on your lap and do a little finger tracing.
That's excellent. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So just a reminder, the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So just know that this is not a linear process, and we are all, as a society, experiencing different levels of grief because of the transition, especially coming into the holidays. We're not going to be having the holidays that we're used to. We're not having the school environment that we're used to. We're not having the social connections that we're used to. So we have to be flexible and think of different ways in which to connect. We have to shift the mindset to what is half full rather than what is half empty. What can I be grateful for? So one of the main things is like, how do you find relief during this time? You know, how can you find relief? So if anybody wants to put in the chat what they're doing right now for stress relief or stress management.
Well, and I'm just going to start off, Corinne, because I spend every day, all day in front of this computer in my office at home in Zoom meetings with parents in schools. And one of the things that has been so simple but made such a difference for me is literally just walking outside. And whether it's walking down the driveway to get the mail or standing in the grass or looking up at the trees, but just, you know, trying to get fresh air, feel the sun, because we've had some beautiful, you know, fall days this past week. But it has really been like a mood lifter and just changed my whole perspective to spend 5 to 10 minutes outside. So I don't know about everybody else, but that's one thing I've been trying to do, just to stand up and stretch and get fresh air.
So you bring a great point. Lorraine, I don't know what's going on with my screen. Okay, whoops. You bring a great point about going outside. Sorry, my computer's a little wonky. I don't know why. Actually, there are studies. I am so excited that you said this, because if you get up every hour and just walk 20 to 30 steps, overall, your happiness, it increases. So just that simple act of getting up from your desk and moving 20 to 30 steps, can go up and down the stairs a couple of times, put your coat on, go outside. I don't care what you do. You know, I was with a group of high schoolers at a local high school yesterday, and they asked me, you know, what is the one thing you would tell us to do in the 7 minutes in between periods? I said 4 words: get up and move. I don't care if you do jumping jacks, whatever it is, or you know, just really, if you need to be seated, excuse me, you can just go side to side. You know, what can you do in order to just move yourself in some way? You know, we forget that we have a body from the neck down, and we can move our shoulders. You know, it's really important to do that.
Yeah, and Sarah commented that she was going to say walking outside, and another, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Q, yes, NQ, I think this is our friend in Malaysia, said that they do mindfulness and grounding to relax. And I really admire that, but being kind of one of these type A people who's always on the go, I struggle with the mindfulness. So I would say if you do struggle with that, literally just going outside for 5 to 10 minutes, as Corinne was describing, and going for a walk. I really encourage you to try it. A short walk. I don't walk that far. I just get the mail, but it makes a huge difference in my day. So I'm trying to do more of it. And yeah, so go ahead, Corinne. Sorry, I just wanted to mention
No. That's
There's others who like going outside as well.
The shift to just going outside, you know, or getting out of the room that you're seated in, you know, like just moving from room to room. And so if, yeah, just moving from room to room, you've got to change scenery. You've got to move in some way. So if you are, you know, there, like you said, there are people who have learning differences, or differently abled people as well, that, so you need to be able to move in some way, even if it's just your breath. I can show a quick breath here. I'm going to show another, because like Lorraine, you just made a really good point. Like, mindfulness is not about sitting still. It's about bringing attention to whatever you're doing with kindness and curiosity. So a lot of people have this framework like, oh, I have to be still, I have to be quiet. No. Yes, and you know, there are other ways that we can do it. We can do it while we're eating, when we're talking. So let me show you a quick breath. To enter, we're just going to do a couple of these because I don't want to get us too jacked up, because it is later in the evening. But you can raise, this is an energizing breath. You can raise your hands overhead. I don't know if you all can see me. Raise your hands overhead and take a nice deep inhale. And on the exhale, you're going to make fists and bring the hands next to your side. So it's so it's called the ha breath. Ha. So it's a nice way to just like shift yourself. So
Corinne, can I ask you a question? I know we're going to have some questions at the end, but when you put that slide up and it showed like the 5 stages of grief,
mhm.
the one thing that I see with a lot of my clients, a lot of the students especially, is they get stuck in one of these stages. And I don't know if you have any ideas or suggestions. I mean, of course, parents can always seek out mental health experts, in the form of direct therapy. But do you have any ideas for efficient ways to try to move people from one stage to the next? And I always say, I have to throw this out there, being an advocate, I always say there's really 6 stages of grief, because for me, the 6th stage is advocacy. Once you've gone through denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, you really want to make sure that no one else goes through what you had to go through to get to the other side either. So that's why I do the work that I do, because for me, I've experienced what it feels like to have a child who wasn't successful in school, and now I work as an advocate. But could you speak a little bit about any ideas you have for parents trying to push their kids through these stages, feel these emotions and move on more productively and a little more healthily?
Yeah, sure. And I love what you just said, Lorraine, about the 6 stages advocacy. And I would also call it action, right? A for action of whatever, whatever we're facing. So the most important thing is creating a safe space and how we create a safe space as parents is to feel the emotions ourselves. Because oftentimes we feel like we have to protect our children. And what happens is that deprives them from the ability to soothe themselves, right? They feel that, oh, I'm not supposed to feel angry. I'm not supposed to feel depressed. And I'm not supposed to be in denial or have these resentful feelings. When if we can make it more natural and more accepting, like we can say to them, I really have, and discussing like our professional, like say we have a resentment or something's going on at work. The children can feel it through us. Like anxiety is like secondhand smoke. It is the most contagious emotion. So even if we say, oh no, I'm fine, the child's like, I don't feel fine. I'm picking up energy. They don't have the words. So we need to help them along to say, I'm wondering if maybe you're feeling, like make it safe and inviting. And then asking them, what do you think that you're needing right now? So that we're not deciding it for them, and the more that we can say like, well, I'm feeling really depleted, or I'm disappointed or frustrated with the situation I have at work, and it has nothing to do with you. This is what I need in order to take care of myself. I'm going to go for a walk to just sort of let it out. So the more that we can practice normalcy and acceptance of our difficult emotions, the more likely they are able to say, hey, that's how I'm feeling. Like having this attitude of curiosity and wonder, like I'm just curious, like, is this a good time to talk? Like we just barge in thinking like, oh, we have to teach them. This is a teachable moment. And if we don't get this right, then they're going to lose out. We have all this stress about ourselves as parents not being able to measure up. So if we can practice more self-acceptance, then the children do it as well, because they're like little mirrors of us. I'm sure I don't need to say that to anyone.
Yes. Corinne, I just want to pause you for 1 second. It sounds like we're getting a lot of interference. So can everybody who's in the room tonight just check and make sure you are on mute, please, so that everybody can hear what Corinne, all her wisdom she has to share with us. So the other question I had for you, Corinne, is when you say parents should model this behavior, do you mean like they should talk about it? Or how do you suggest parents model feelings of anger other than having like a, kind of screaming or, I mean, I don't know what
Right.
how do parents model depression without, laying on the couch and not getting up? Or
No, these are great. These are great. Yeah. And so the thing is talking about it. So for example, like in my own family, there's a history of addiction, right? And so it's something that we talk about in my family is about you know, there's substance use, there's a history of misuse of substance use for numbing out, and let's have healthier coping mechanisms. And anger, teaching that anger is not, it's not a bad emotion to have, it's just an emotion, just like happiness. It's how we express it, you know, that then, because anger comes up because a boundary has been crossed, right? So because it's like, if we can think of it as the oil light going on in the car, right? Like, hey, we need to pay attention to this, we need to do an oil change or put a can of oil in the tank to make it run smoother, excuse me, making up words now. You know, just taking the sting and the destigmatizing it, right? Just like we're destigmatizing mental health, because we've got to take care of our minds just like we do our body. We brush our teeth, well, we need to do these self-care activities so that we're keeping our mind in balance as well. And depression, in terms of depression, you know, it's okay. It's as long as we don't get stuck, because depression often is like anger internalized, right? Like we don't cry. Like if we make it okay to cry, or for them to express themselves, like actually crying releases stress hormones. So it's really important to cry, that we don't, you know, bottle it in. And the other thing that I've heard about the word depressed, which I love, is deep rest. It's really our body's way of saying, like, we need to rest right now. And I think that some people, not everyone, but some people are waiting to get back to the level of energy that they had prior to COVID. And it's still not happening. And it's not going to happen, because we're in a different time right now. And I think we need to be more compassionate with ourselves. So the more that we can model to our children, and if you do lose your temper and anger, that you go back and you say, you know what, that was not my best self. And we all make mistakes. And I'm really sorry to have hurt you. That's not how I want to show up. And that shows me that I need to take better care of myself, and I'm going to make sure that I do X, Y, and Z tomorrow or tonight, right? So that we're just modeling it in that way. Like, for example, I had mentioned that I'm in North Carolina at a hotel room, and I felt like, okay, I got to get here so I can set up for the webinar and be on time and put my best self forward. So what I did was I communicated with my son, and I said, hey, listen, I'm feeling a little anxious about tonight and nervous. I don't want to take it out on you. This is what I need. I need you and your friend, you know, to go get something to eat, go to the lobby, and I'll like, so that I was telling him what was happening, so that I wasn't just showing up like, this is the first time that I'm doing this type of presentation for this audience, and I really want it to go well. And Lorraine's a new partner, you know, so explaining to him what was going on, instead of just being like, you know, you need to leave and blah, 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 blah. So it gives them more of a reference, and it's like, oh, okay. Whenever anybody does something for the first time, even that adults that are used to it, it's okay, you know, to be anxious. Is this helpful to everyone?
Really helpful, Corinne. And I'm sitting here thinking, though, you know, I have a son who's in high school, and being a boy who I feel like has, you know, not from my husband and I, but from his own ideas, has decided that he's not allowed to feel sad or cry or show emotion because he's a teenage boy. But I'm sitting here thinking, you know, is it your recommendation that as we label our behaviors or our feelings and we talk about them, that creates the safe space for our kids to open up? Or are there other strategies or ideas that parents can use to kind of solicit feelings from their kids? Because, you know, I will say my son is, you know, he's a great kid, but he's not overly expressive sometimes if he is really feeling down. I have to kind of say, hey, here's what I'm observing. Is this the case? And sometimes he'll talk about it and sometimes he won't. So, oh, there's your next slide. So maybe you can give all of us here tonight, you know, whatever tips or ideas you have for trying to solicit some of these emotions from our partners, our spouses, and our kids.
So I love that you asked that, Lorraine, because I have 3 children. I have a daughter and 2 sons. And so my daughter's 22 and my 2 sons are 19 and 17, about to be 20 and 18. And I cannot believe I have children these ages. However, that being said, they are all so different. And the 2 young men, because they're young men, also have, like, my son who is almost 20 sounds a lot like your son, much more reserved. I'm not angry. I don't I don't feel this way. I'm good. Like, just puts on this, protective shield. And what I would recommend is continue to do what you do as an adult, as a mom, and to accept them as they are. And what I do sometimes when I feel, because I will notice that maybe he's a little uptight about something. So I'll say, I'm just noticing, I'm wondering, this is what I'm getting from you. And you might not be experiencing that. I'm just letting you know that I'm experiencing, that's how I'm interpreting your body language or what have you.
That's helpful. I like how you said, I'm noticing that this is the feeling I'm getting from you, or this is what I'm observing, as opposed to saying, you seem really angry right now. And sometimes I think it's a natural, inclination as a mom to be like, well, why are you being so aggravated? Or why are you, so stressed out? As opposed to, as you said, saying, this is what it looks like, and checking in to say, is that the case or not? So that's very helpful.
Exactly. And here's the thing, is that they might say, no, I don't feel that at all. And you'll be like, okay. And you just let it go. Like, you have to let it go. And then you say, well, it's curious because I'm feeling, my reaction to you and how you're presenting is like, I'm feeling that maybe you might be a little angry or frustrated, not with me, but maybe with something that's going on. Because it also might take them a little time to process, right? Like, the work I do, obviously, I'm very much more in tune with my emotions, right? And so there's a great book called Permission to Feel. Dr. Mark Brackett, that actually Fairfax County Public Schools had him several times come and speak, and they use his system in a few of the high schools in Fairfax County. So this idea of, like, permission to feel, I'm telling you, the more that we model it and the more that we don't label it for them and just allow them space, it's really remarkable how they'll show up.
And you know what's funny about that, Corinne? I don't know how many parents we have in the chat. Type, shout out if this resonates with you. But I remember all of the years when my son was younger, right before bedtime, that quiet time before bed when you're sitting there talking to them or laying there reading them a story. It seemed like that was really that safe space that you were talking about. And I would find that even when my son wouldn't tell me stuff throughout the day, wouldn't acknowledge things that had happened, just in that quiet space, he would oftentimes just let everything out or say things that I could kind of piece together and know what he was really thinking. So I'm just curious if this is true for other parents, because I do think that when we're so busy, sometimes we get too into ourselves, we don't continue these special times with our kids. And for me, that was such a helpful time to really find out how difficult school was for him. What were other kids saying to him? What was he feeling about being a student who needed, a read aloud accommodation, and how could we talk that through? So yeah, I'm just curious if any other parents find bedtime with their kids to be that safe space, or if you have other ideas. I know now that my son is older, I use driving in the car. Yes. I get him in the passenger seat, and then we have some good conversations.
Yes, very true. And Lorraine, to talk to what you're saying, my son, who's a senior in high school, he has started, like, because their clocks are different than ours, they get energy later in the evening, the adolescents. And by the way, adolescence starts now at age 10 and goes up to 25. So there's a big window, and it has to do with brain development more than hormones. Just something to keep aware of for those of you that are parenting that age range. With that being said, like, my son will come into my bedroom at 10:30 at night when I'm really ready to go to bed, and he's like, okay, I'm ready to talk, or whatever. And I'm like, but he would have gotten home from soccer practice or work at 8:30. He needs a little time, to decompress himself. So really just allowing yourself to be available to them. And again, just making that space without, the other thing that I wanted to say, what I do with teens that is really effective is I do this at my class at GW, is I have them check in terms of an internal weather system, right? Because weather changes all the time, and so do we. Our moods change all the time. So most people will say, if you ask them how they are, they'll say, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm okay. You have no idea how they're doing, right? So if you say, like at the dinner table, or maybe when they get up in the morning, well, how's your weather today? Well, partly cloudy with a storm on the horizon, little humid. Literally it gives you a much better idea of how everybody's doing. Because also if you do, like in the Zoom room, if I say, okay, thumbs up, thumbs to the side, or thumbs down, how you're doing, you still don't get, more information. So it's just a way to be more descriptive, and they don't have to divulge anything.
I'm just laughing, Corinne, because when I started off this morning, it was like, oh, chance of rain, and there could be a thunderstorm later today around 4. So I just want to ask for our audience members, I think it would be fun to just see if everyone could put their emotional weather in the chat for where you are right now, or whatever you're comfortable sharing. But that's awesome, Corinne, because again, I love that your strategies can be easy to understand for kids of all ages, right? So, even a young student can understand how they feel on a sunny day versus how maybe they feel on a windy or cold or rainy day, and make that correlation between their emotions and the weather, and be able to communicate that to someone. That's great.
And that it constantly changes. That's the beauty of the weather. Like it changes from moment to moment sometimes. So even if we feel like, oh, we're having a bad day, is that really true? Or did we have a few bad moments in a good day?
Okay,
right?
I got to read some of the chat to you because this is so fun. One person says, right now I'm feeling the clouds lift. Thanks, Corinne. And then we got my weather was calm until my son texted me, and now there is a storm brewing. And this individual says, today sunny with light cloud coverage, but tomorrow is looking like a clear sky, 75 degrees and a slight breeze. That sounds awesome.
Awesome.
Maybe because it's Friday. Yeah. All right. That's so fun. I'm going to be doing this with my own family and laughing and thinking of you. So thanks for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. So I just wanted, I'll run through a couple of the slides, but I want to give time for questions at the end. So the next thing we can do is be open, like open to how we're feeling. Like notice how the graphic on here, feeling, habits, a lot of what I work with, my program is called Conquer the Invisible, right? So the invisible stuff is the stuff that can hold us back. Our emotions, the stories we tell ourselves, the thoughts we have, the beliefs we have can really hold us back. So the more that we're open to understanding what's going on around us, the better off we are. And then nurture and nourish, really taking in the good, like making a gratitude list. That alone, that practice alone, they've done studies where they've taken people who have been diagnosed with depression and had them write 3 things for 2 weeks, only 2 weeks, but 3 things every day. And they reported, without medication, an increased sense of happiness at the end of 2 weeks. So it's something that you can do in the beginning of the day when you open your eyes and you can just write it down, or at the end of the day. Because there is always something good, even if it's like a sip of your favorite coffee, or that you got out of bed this morning, or that you took a shower, like that you have running water. Like it doesn't have to be these big things. It can be the little things. And then what happens is that your brain starts looking for the good. because we've got to reprogram our brain, because we've got something called negativity bias, where we tend to look for the bad to protect ourselves. It's something that's physiologically built in with us, and we have to shift that. And how we can shift it is by paying attention to the good, like taking in the good, just one thing. Because where the attention flows, where the attention goes, the energy flows.
So Corinne, I have a question for you, because I do love the concept of a gratitude journal, and I know a lot of people kind of resist one more thing to do, to fill out or what have you. But as you were saying this, I'm also thinking that this would be great for younger children too, even if they can't write. Their parents could ask them just to, say 3 things that they're grateful for, right? So you could have a journal, which would be fun to look back on after the week and see what kind of your highlights were. But could you just talk through that exercise too?
Sure, absolutely. And I also, I have a gratitude buddy that I text it to every day. Like, we've been doing that for years now, and they live on the West Coast, and I don't talk to them that often. However, I know what's going on in their lives because of the gratitudes that we share back and forth, So it's something. And also another exercise that you can do at the dinner table, if you all have heard of this, is rose, thorn, and bud. Something good, the rose; something not so good, the thorn; and then the bud is something that you're looking forward to. You can also do high, low, and buffalo. My daughter actually taught me that, that she learned that from a group she was in. The buffalo is something that's weird or out of the ordinary that happens in the day. That's sort of fun, So those 2 exercises. There's tons of tricks and things that we can do to program ourselves. So I just want to keep paying attention to the time, because we have a little bit more than 10 minutes, and I want to make sure that you do have, I want to do one more practice for you. It has to do with this quiet. It's really about pausing, right? Because if we can pause, then we can make a choice rather than react, right? So all we have to do, I call this the peaceful pause. So if you place a hand on your chest and a hand on your belly, and you can close your eyes or you can cast them down, and you just take 3 deep breaths. So breathing in through the nose, and then long, slow exhale out the mouth. And just do that 2 more times, breathing in, and then breathing out, softening around the shoulders as you exhale. And one last time. And then releasing, and then gently opening the eyes. You may have felt a shift. So that what we just did was we shifted our internal nervous system from stress to relaxation. So just by taking those deep breaths, we reset. And if you can do that a few times a day, like maybe you're doing it, maybe you can teach your children to do that in between classes, or just one class, maybe their most difficult class. Again, it's just something like we can pause and have a response. And this is one of my favorite quotes. Between stimulus and response, there's a space, and in that space is the power to choose our response. And in that space is freedom. And that's said by Viktor Frankl, who's a Holocaust survivor. Mm-hmm. And if he can say that, we all can really have some freedom around how we want to show up.
I'm just going to say, Corinne, it's amazing that exercise that you just did with the breath. I think so many of us, myself included, we go through our day kind of, on one speed. And I don't know about everybody else, but I definitely felt, much more relaxed after that deep breathing exercise. So it sounds so simple again.
It sounds so simple again. Right, but we all breathe, and myself included, I breathe from our chest. And when we breathe from our chest, that actually activates the stress response. When we breathe with the diaphragm, which is how we're built to breathe, just like babies breathing, babies breathe, we see that soft belly breath. We then go into the relaxation response. Again, simple, not easy, right? So, again, it's all about changing our mindset, like what kind of expectation we can have. Like, are we looking for the negative or are we looking for the positive? So being able to reframe situations with our children too, maybe talking more about how we have failed. How many times have you talked, when I was your age, this was this was something that I was really proud of. This was something that was a challenge for me. Like, the more that we can share about and reflect back, like when we notice that they had a difficult time, oh, that's really difficult for you. Or if you catch yourself being mean to yourself, that you're able to say to yourself, please be kind to myself right now. I'm going to try to be kind to myself right now. The more that they see that behavior, like our stopping and like, okay, I can be kind to myself right now. That's how I choose. I choose to be kind to myself. They then will mirror that behavior. And then we'll wind up with a little bit more resilience. So the more that we integrate these practices, resilience is something that doesn't happen overnight. It's like building our physical muscle, right? We fall down, we get back up, we fall down. And what happens with these practices and in life is that the more that we have setbacks, like I love this quote, our setbacks are our setups for our comebacks, right? We don't often think of that, but what happens is that when we fall down, we don't stay down for as long as we have in the past. So, changing habits, being more compassionate. And I love this, the quality of your life is dependent upon the quality of your relationships. So true, right? So I want to just open it up for any questions right now because we have less than 10 minutes left.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll ask Corinne to speak on any specific questions. I think the one question I have, Corinne, while we're waiting for others to maybe share some of their questions is, I think that when my son was little, I think I did a great job of modeling and being more vocal about, oh, look, I'm washing my hands after I go to the restroom or what have you. But at some point, you just kind of assume your kids know what to do. And I think we stop talking about and modeling how we self-regulate or how we calm ourselves or how we manage our to-do list when things get hectic. Do you have any suggestions on, at what age do you ever stop doing this? I mean, you have adult children, so I don't know if you're.
No, you don't ever stop doing you like, and I feel that as they get older, it becomes more and more important for us to step back. That's what, I had a client yesterday. She like, I think, the beginning of the week, is there any way you can talk to me? Because what she was finding is her 21-year-old daughter, who's a senior in college, is getting very anxious. And then that, comes to her. And so I said to her, well, don't answer the phone right away. And like, you have to change, like, you can send her a text that says, is this a 911 or can this wait? So that you have to create, as the parent, you have to create that space. And it's going to take a little practice because because we as parents think, oh, we have to be available all the time. No, actually, we're doing them a disservice as they get older for being their crutch, right? They have to learn how to self-soothe and be independent. I'm not saying like push them off, but with our children who are young adults, so, who are in the older teens, like 16, 17, 20, we have to start letting them fall down and pick themselves back up. You can think of it as when they were toddlers and we had to Ferberize them, is what we called it, around sleeping. It's the same thing, just it shows up differently. Like, we have to have the confidence that we're good enough and that we've done well enough, and we have every confidence that they can do it. The minute that we start doubting them is the time that they start doubting themselves. Like, the minute that we step in and we say, oh, I'll just do it for you because it's easier. Of course it's easier for us to do it for them. It's not necessarily the best thing for them.
Yep. So Corinne, I don't see any questions yet. If anyone does have a question, just go ahead and type it in the chat to everyone and we'll go ahead and ask your question. But I have another question and just want to ask you, I don't want to make light of this subject about mental health and anxiety and depression, especially right now when I know, so many people are so far down that they probably can't even think about, oh yeah, I'm going to do a gratitude journal. Like they're already too far down for that to even be a possibility for them. So if we do have anyone joining tonight or who feels that way or knows of someone who feels that way, what would you encourage them to do in terms of mental health support?
Right. I would call their local their guidance counselor at school and to find out referrals for therapists. Go on Psychology Today and get the therapeutic help you need. Absolutely. The other thing that I'm going to say is, if there's any way that you can get somebody in their body and move like that, the thing to de-stress, or because you've got to take it out of the head and into the body, because that's where we process it. We are still mammals, and what happens is, like, mammals in the wild, they like shake it off, right? The tigers and the lions, they just like shake it off. We never shake it off. We just hold it. So we've got to figure out a way to shake it off. Go
Yeah.
play like I hear, like, and I just want you to know, and I don't think my daughter would have a problem saying this, but I'm going to disclose it. She, between her freshman and sophomore year at college, I couldn't get her out of bed, and for a number of days. And so I've been there. I just want to say, and you have to have patience. That's what I'm like, and believing that there is that light, and just continue to let them know how much love you do have for them, and you're getting professional support. I'm not saying, she had professional support. When I said she wasn't getting out of bed, she was occasionally to take a shower, but she was not looking for a job. She was not motivated to really leave her room much at all. And so that can be really scary for us as parents. And so you need to get the help and support that you need, instead of channeling that nervous energy more into them. Because the more grounded that you can have, and if they're not going to get help, you get help. It's sort of like, you often hear, put the oxygen mask on yourself first. But what I like to say is the heart pumps blood to itself first. So it's
That's
the
really
same.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The heart pumps blood to itself first. So
Yes.
we need to do that for ourselves. And it's not to say that we don't care about our children. Like, she's my life, right? And at the same, and I would, and that's actually how I got involved in doing a lot of this work, is because at my daughter's high school, when she was 14, there was a suicide cluster. The CDC came in and said, yes, this is a suicide cluster. And I thought, wow, how could I have these mind-body skills and not teach them to the youth, at least to say to them, the story is a story. It's not really what's happening. Like, wiggle your toes, stomp your feet, like whatever you need to do to just get in the body.
Yeah, and it's great to see. I know a lot of our school districts in Northern Virginia, they are actually putting social and emotional curriculums in place, like not just for the younger kids, but all the way through, mental health teams and supports. And we definitely need it, especially right now. So does anyone have any questions that they want to ask Corinne? She's here tonight to support us. Amy's given you a thumbs up. Anything anybody wants to know about what you're either going through, your kids are going through, what you feel like you need some support around? I think, as you said, Corinne, we're getting ready to go into the holiday season, and that often is challenging for a lot of people, especially in a social distance environment. So I think that we could use, some of your tips, whether it's around the Thanksgiving table and talking about what we're thankful for, right? As opposed to grateful for. But yeah, Justin just said I have to hop up for another call at 8.
Hi,
but
Justin.
wonderful session.
Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that this is the way to get in touch with me. If you do want some follow-up and you want some one-on-one support, I'm running a special just for you all who are on this call, that usually a 60-minute call with me costs $147, and for a limited time that cost is just $47. So if you go to
Wow, that's awesome.
conquertheinvisible.com, you'll get $100 off. When you have
Thank
to
you,
book,
Corinne. Thank you for doing that.
you're welcome. So if you would rather have, you know, some one-on-one, if you have specific questions and how I can really help you through whatever your family is experiencing right now.
Yeah, thank you, sincerely. That's wonderful that you're making that available tonight, because it's not that unusual that we don't have a lot of questions in the chat, because this is a delicate subject and not everybody wants to just say, hey, we're really struggling at our house, or we're struggling, my son or my daughter is really struggling. So we are getting some nice present. Someone wrote, this is a super generous. Thank you so much for this presentation. I'm very grateful. Another one of our attendees said, love the talks. Thank you. So I think you and I and Melissa realize how delicate the subject is, and we all felt just called to go on tonight and share this information and your kind offer. I would definitely encourage any of my clients or friends who are watching to take advantage of Corinne's expertise and that generous offer that you just made. So someone else said, okay, I'll say it. We are always struggling. Yes, good for you. I'm not going to say who said that, but I think that's awesome that you are willing to put it out there. And I would say that too. At my house, I joke about the fact that I've walked around with a scarlet D on my chest for dyslexia ever since my son was in kindergarten. And people would say to me all the time, wow, you're just so out there, you're talking about it. And it really wasn't ever easy. But I decided, you know what, if my son's going to have to walk around and be comfortable saying, I'm dyslexic and I can't read and I can't spell, then as you said, Corinne, I felt like as his mom, well, if this is what dyslexia looks like, this is us. Our family has dyslexia because my husband has it too. So anyway, thank you so much. We're so grateful that you were here tonight. Somebody also wrote, kindly post on the site. We need to view this again, and they're leaving now. So I think you have been recording. Is that right, Corinne?
Yes.
All right, excellent.